Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to discuss, there's a series that I'm going to record, and this one's going to be about you've been indicted and what are you going to do? And you may be jailed immediately. My name is Mark Blatstein, the physician founder of Physician Pre-Sentence Report Service, White Collar Sentencing Mitigation Solutions. And if you're going to be, if you're indicted, facing prison, don't give up. It's not going to be the end of the world. There's my email, phone number. You'll notice that I'll be looking to my right because I have notes on another monitor. And let's get started. Here we go. So, if unfortunately, if you they actually remand or lock you up, it's definitely not a good feeling. And that did not happen to me. It does happen to some, but you're going to have to hire a legal professional. And so, what does hiring a legal team mean? You need to hire someone who has legal experience. This is my website, by the way. You can, get to it, pprsus.com. I'll get back to that at another point in the video. But they should also have a proven track record of successfully defending cases like yours. So it's going to be, it probably is important when you start talking to attorneys to have someone with you. Again, I did not do that. I thought that, that I had a corporate lawyer, and in the corporate firm, and in the firm, there was a prosecutor that did prosecuted white collar crimes, and he became a white collar defense attorney. And I had friends of mine that said, they were much smarter than I in the business world, and they, swore to me that they talked to me and had lawyers for me, and I don't recall any of that. I was pretty much of a basket case. But if you know that you're guilty, um, and you're considering, do you go to trial? You're going to plead not guilty. Consider that lawyers are going to charge anywhere from thousands of dollars, several $1,000s an hour, or at minimum several $100s an hour. And is that going to be the best place to put your money? Where in the end, if you're going to be guilty, do you want to start out shelling out money through the discovery phase? Some attorneys will, talk to you and say that there's a discovery phase, and if you know that you're guilty, um, they'll say that you may not want to spend the money with them to do that. That there's better use of your funds, and they'll discuss with you what to do. For me, I was in denial the entire time, and so I threw money at attorneys because I just couldn't see that this was my life. But you may be, you may have a good attorney that you have interviewed with someone with you. You've asked appropriate questions that I'll go through with you. And maybe you're able to save yourself some shekels without, throwing good money after bad. Of course, at the same time, you may be in the right, but I'm not here making that judgment with you. Whether you go to trial or you plea, um, that is a strategic decision between you and your attorney. But if you decide to plea, do this. This means that you also need to be willing to go ahead and begin that you need to what's called write a personal narrative, your story, where in some way, and everyone is different, we need to be able to structure a pathway for you to be able to accept responsibility, excuse me, and and understand where you have remorse for the victims that have been harmed, because there's always victims, even if the charge says it's a victimless crime. There's always victims regarding the courts and all of the stakeholders that will go into that shortly. And so this is all leading to where, if in fact you're guilty either by pleading or by going to trial, that there'll be a pre-sentence interview with a probation officer. And the goal here is to get all the information to the probation officer ahead of time, a week or so before you meet, because they see a lot of people. And your goal is to make an advocate of the probation officer. And chances are there are not many people who are doing that. But consider this, if they see a lot of people, they're overworked, they're underpaid. And if you happen to be one of a very few that gets them all the information that they need ahead of time, that's spell checked, organized, so that they're able at their leisure to fill out their pre-sentence report worksheet, so that when you finally have the interview with them, you're able to go ahead, they're able to ask you any remaining questions that they may have. Then they may come away from the interview feeling that you took this seriously and that you're prepared. And so they may actually make a positive recommendation regarding you to the judge after they have drafted the official pre-sentence report. And this pre-sentence report, the PSR, is also known as the inmate's Bible. And so they are going to be the most important person in your life. They are the first stakeholder, and their recommendation is regarding what your character, what kind of person are you? Did they believe you? because judges and the probation officer have great bullshit detectors. Don't try and lie. They can make a recommendation regarding your sentence, regarding your placement, supervised release. And if your counsel and you have any specific recommendations or concerns, they can pass that on and maybe have input regarding that to the judge. So choosing the right attorney, this is a big deal. This is your life. And so there are questions that, it's important. First of all, you need to know if they practice federal criminal defense in federal court. It sounds obvious, but I have clients that they may practice federal criminal defense, but it's not a majority of their practice. It's okay. There are great attorneys that practice federal and state, but you need to know that they practice federal criminal defense, but they have experience with cases like yours. They, you want to know at this moment, I'm going to stress that you may not be making the best decisions. You probably are nervous or you're upset or you're depressed, but you want to have someone with you. So at least you have support there so that they can, when you're interviewing or asking these questions, you want to know if they have any past clients that you could speak with. And they may say that there's HIPAA, and the person's they may not want to, they may feel that some of the clients may not want to speak personally. And that's probably true, but there has to be some. Listen, no one wants to be talk about, having to go to court and lose and go to prison, but I'm sure there may be a few that say that, that the attorney was a reasonable person and did the best that they could. You may want to see if they could provide several example sentencing memorandums. And what are these? These, when you go to sentencing about a week or so before sentencing, and judges here are a stickler. This is what your attorney will write regarding your sentence that is personal information about you. It's not boilerplate information, but it's specific to you regarding your sentence to the judge. But the reason you want to see several examples of memorandum that your attorney's written is so that you can see if they're different. You don't need to say this to the attorney, but this is what you want to see. And here there is HIPAA or privacy rules, and just let the attorney know that you agree and you appreciate that. But within PDF documents, they have the ability to redact. And so you just want to look at a few. You want to be comfortable with your lawyer. And that's a very big deal because it's not only is it a big step in the right direction, but this is a marriage. And in a marriage, you can actually get divorced. This is not a good time where in the middle of, your case, you want to step away and get the divorce because as you're getting prepared for your pre-sentence interview and sentencing hearing, this is not good to have, all of a sudden get buyer's remorse from your defense team. And this can happen. I mean, when you want to ask them if when they recommend preparing for the pre-sentence interview and sentencing hearing. And this is a big question because, I've had phone calls where the client has paid for the attorney and that included trial and they didn't go to trial, they pled and they wanted to use a consultant to help them prepare for the pre-sentence interview. And it was very tough. I mean, the attorney didn't want to take that route. So there are two federal judges that I quote here and I have on my website. First, he said the first federal judge Patrick Schultz said it's surprising how many otherwise competent attorneys punt at the sentencing hearing. And the second federal judge, Robert Scalia, says you don't want to wait to think about the sentencing hearing. Since 99% of federal criminal clients will face sentencing, start preparing the case for sentencing early on, which means in the vernacular that as soon as you meet your lawyer, you should start preparing these personal narratives then. You may want to go to trial. That's okay. But on your own, hopefully someone's giving you these recommendations to begin, going back and coaching you through this, your backstory as to, where you came from and what brought you to this position today. And some of this information, if it's in trial, can help your attorney defend you. Because you may feel that you want to go to trial and that you're in the right. And I'm not an attorney. But just feeling you're right and going to trial may not be enough. And you could actually be innocent. But the Department of Justice has a 98% conviction rate. I can only tell you that I was convicted. I didn't appeal the sentence. We appealed the indictment, and the judge to tell me he didn't want to see me back in the courtroom. And when I went to a camp. Was back in 2006. Came out and everyone there told me don't appeal. And I didn't get any input really from my attorney. And so we appealed the indictment. I didn't appeal the sentence. I figured I'm just going to get like Vanna White. We're going to get door number one or door number two, yes or no. And I went home and then I went back to the court and we appealed the indictment and he listened and he said, okay, denied. And then he sent me back to prison. I almost fell through the floor. I never didn't know there was door number three where I would have to go back to prison. So, forewarned is forearmed. I don't know. And if you go to trial, just do not anger the judge, be respectful. And even though you lose, if you lose, you still have all is not lost. You can still go back and begin to go through the process of the next several YouTubes as you prepare for that all important pre-sentence interview. I hope you found this helpful. And thank you for taking the time to listen into this short series of YouTubes. Have a good day.